Welcome to Kyle Anthony's UFC betting show. I am Kyle Anthony, and welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the prediction show for UFC 241, Daniel Cormier versus Stipe Miocic. We're going to talk about two free plays that we have on this card, as well as options on Wagertalk. Combined with those plays over the last 5 events, we are 14-6. Having a nice run, a lot of plus money plays, including a plus 180, a plus 160, plus 130, plus 135, couple great value plays. So overall, having a nice run here, want to keep it going. And if you like UFC gambling, you're interested in advice, overall betting advice in the UFC, definitely get involved, subscribe, like this video. Always appreciate everybody who comments down below. Tell me how you're doing, what your thoughts are on other fights. Always appreciate the comments and the activity. So, we're going to first get into our main free play. Our main free play is on the main event of the evening between Daniel Cormier and Stipe Miocic. Now, we're not going to fully dive into all of these last few fights because a lot of them I wasn't able to really fully take away information from. And I'll get into what I mean on that. But really it was a stylistic matchup. Don't really fit kind of what's happening with these guys. And what they're doing. And again, besides for their last fight that they had, and this is a rematch, we'll talk about that in a minute. But the first thing we'll talk about is the odds. Right now, you've got Cormier as a slight favorite, minus 138. You've got Miocic, who's plus 114. Now, you got Stipe. He had a 6-fight winning streak. 5 of them were by stoppage. He beat a bunch of top-level, elite, ex-champions, and ended up being the champ. Had a nice run. Came out there. He ended up beating Giro dos Santos. He fought him for the second time. Which a fight like that, and let's get into that. The fight like that is a fight where Giro dos Santos versus Stipe Miocic. This was a fight where Giro dos Santos, to me, the pressure is a path to victory for Stipe Miocic. It's an absolute path to victory for anybody that faces Giro dos Santos, because Dos Santos really turtles up. He runs kind of awkwardly, and more recently he's done that than he used to kind of sit in the pocket in the past, and that was a path to victory for Stipe. Stipe went out there and put it on him, put the pressure, likes to be in close, and we're going to talk about more about that, but likes to be in close, was able to find the chin of Giro dos Santos, put him away in the first round. That was a victory for him there. You also have when he fought Francis Ngannou. And this was a fight here against Francis where Francis looked like a world beater. He was knocking out everybody, flashy. He looked like a monster. And Stipe went in there in the first round, took a couple big shots, and then from there, basically, he said, no more of this. I'm going to wrestle him to a decision. Absolutely did that. Found the weakness in Stipe. Found a weakness in Ngannou. Stipe coasted to a decision victory there, and you can't blame him, but when a guy does not have the wrestling credentials, he's able to find himself a victory. So we'll talk about the DC fight in a minute. Now we'll talk about Cormier. Cormier here, it's a fight. He fought against Volkan Ozdemir. We did cash in Volkan Ozdemir last week against Latifi. But here, it was just too much, too soon for Ozdemir. Ozdemir was knocking out guys, looked great, just too young, not well-rounded enough to face somebody like Cormier, and they kind of needed an opponent for Daniel to fight. Daniel goes out there, dominates the fight, wrestles him, ends up getting the stoppage in the second round. And then he fought Stipe, we'll get to that. And then he fought, most recently, Derek Lewis. This was a fight here where, a fight I went to, I was there at Madison Square Garden for this fight, and it was more they needed a title fight. They needed an opponent for Daniel Cormier, and they ended up pulling in Derek Lewis. Derek Lewis had fought about 3 or 4 months prior to that. It was kind of a rushed kind of fight. Obviously, Derek Lewis is going to take the money. He always says, I'm a prize fighter. I'll fight anybody for money. So he was able to go in there. It was a one-sided victory. Nothing that really Lewis had as in highlights. It was a rear naked choke in the second round for Daniel Cormier to get that victory. So with that all being said, let's cover a little bit about the first time that these two fought. Now, when the first time that they fought, it was a light heavyweight champion facing a heavyweight champion. And this was a situation where you've got the bigger guy, everyone talking about Stipe, and Stipe was the slight favorite betting line. Stipe was the bigger guy, the reach, the height, and all these things. You got Cormier, who's coming up in weight. How's that going to affect him, and what was he going to be able to do? Was he able to get inside? Would he wrestle Stipe? And all these questions were kind of going on. And when you broke it down to this fight, now I talked to a lot of people on Twitter. Some people are saying, hey, they think Stipe was dominating the fight until the knockout. Some people say, oh, it was all Cormier, or, the eye poke kind of thing. A lot of different, and I watched the fight a couple times to really grasp it. And my opinion of this is this. My opinion basically is, early in that fight, I think that when they first stepped into the cage and that round one first started, Cormier I think was kind of feeling it out. I think he was kind of backing off a little bit. I don't think that he was rushing into it. I think he knows that, there's no need for him to do that. He kind of was feeling it out, and the pressure he knew was coming from Stipe, and Stipe was, moving forward and landing some big shots, but it wasn't that it was that. I really liked how Cormier was moving and how relaxed he was with the shots. I mean, he almost was batting down, which you don't really see too much, but he was kind of batting away the shots, which they were slipping through. Stipe was able to find Cormier and land some shots, but it was kind of almost that, not that he was playing with Stipe, but I think that he was feeling it out, and he did not really turn it up. He was getting hit with a couple shots, but once Cormier kind of waved him in and, let's do it, let's start throwing, was when things changed. And I think you saw that Cormier's quick. Cormier definitely has speed with his hands, which I think is very underrated. And you saw that the power really transitioned and really elevated when he moved to heavyweight. And once he landed a big shot, because before he actually knocked out Stipe, he rocked Stipe. I mean, Stipe was rocked with a shot, and that was a big turning point. It didn't put him down, but that was a big turning point. And that's when Cormier started to move a little bit forward, get into the clinch, look to land some dirty boxing, and that was where he threw the overhand right that ended the fight. Now, with that all being said, a lot of people now looking at it now saying, okay, yeah, Cormier came in as a slight underdog. Now he's a slight favorite. And to me here, I was capping this fight. I was looking at this as maybe a minus 160, minus 165 for Cormier. So here he's at minus 138. I was a little bit surprised. But this is the reason why I was surprised, basically. So the way I look at it is this. You've got Stipe on the one side. He's got the range. He's got the height. He's got the reach. He's got the height. But Stipe does like the pressure forward. But the thing about Stipe that he does is that he presses so forward that it almost is giving Cormier an opportunity to be in a Cormier's range, where he's able to wrestle, where he's able to get his hands on Stipe, where he's able to use his shorter reach, inside against Stipe. Because Stipe is not a kind of guy that's going to really be hitting you with a full arm extension and land a big shot. That's just not really how he throws. He likes to be in kind of close, short hooks, short shots. He has a lot of power. It's not that he can't knock out Cormier within that range, but that gives Cormier an opportunity to get in tight. And then you talk about the durability. Now, the durability, you've got Cormier, who absolutely has a fantastic chin, besides when it's getting kicked in the face against John Jones. But besides for that, he is durable. He's able to last. He's got good cardio. And you've seen Stipe be wobbled a couple times, gets rocked. He's been hittable. He's not scared to get hit also, but he's been hittable. And the later rounds, I think, is a big part of this also. Now, when I had picked Cormier last time when they fought, and I was looking at a decision. I thought, this looks like a decision. This looks like, that if anything, and I didn't bet the decision, but that was the way I was looking at this. And I was capping saying, I like him out of, 3 or 4 rounds to win those rounds and to get a decision victory here. And looking at it, I think that's somewhere that, of course anything's possible in a fight, and I really don't like betting as much method of victory. But when you look at this, even early on, it's going to be the same thing. Stipe's going to be looking to charge forward. You're going to have Cormier kind of playing on the outside. But later on, I think the cardio, and I think that the way that Cormier fights is going to give him the opportunity to get a decision victory. So there's a lot that I like about that, but the big part is definitely going to be the range in which this fight is going to take place and the striking range and the close distance of this fight. So for me here, again, that with the price here, I thought it'd be higher. I love the price at minus 130. I actually bet it at minus 130. It's at now minus 138. And I liked it there. I'm going to bet Daniel Cormier. I think he gets the victory. I think he gets the job done. I just don't think Stipe has enough weapons. And when you see who Cormier has had tough opponent against, which is John Jones has knees, elbows, kicks, all different kind of creative striking where you really got to pay attention to a lot of different angles. You've got Stipe is basically a pure boxer. You're not going to see much on the kicking side. You're not going to really be seeing much of that, where Cormier doesn't have to worry about all those other things. And you're also the fact that Stipe, one of his big weapons is wrestling. He's not going to be able to use that. And he's never had to really face somebody that has had the credentials of these kind of wrestling. So you even look back at people that he's fought, like Hunt, Orlovsky, Ngannou, Junior Dos Santos, Overeem. These guys are pure strikers where that's just, they're standing toe to toe and they're firing. Here, he's gonna have to worry about that, and I think that is just such enough where it's gonna take him out of his game. So I am betting Daniel Cormier as my main free play to win in the main event. Now, the other play we're going to talk about is the co-main event of the evening. It's between Nate Diaz and Anthony Pettis. Now, this fight here currently, you've got Anthony Pettis at -130. You've got Nate Diaz at +118. And I'm not going to dive fully into this as in what they did in the past, because you've got, first we'll talk about Nate Diaz here. And you got Nate Diaz 3 fights ago. He beat Michael Johnson. And Michael Johnson, yes, he's a known fighter. Yes, he's a fan favorite. But when you take a look at that win, I mean, Michael Johnson is 19-13 in his career over since 2015. He's 3-6. Yes, he's fought some tough guys, but he's looked bad in certain spots and had some highlight reel knockouts. But again, to me, you kind of don't really say too much about that fight. Then he fought Conor twice, beat Conor once, and also lost to Conor. One was a close fight, but you've got Conor who went way up in weight, in a short period, and then wanted to refight back at 170 and all, kind of a crazy situation. So it's tough to take away. Yes, he beat Conor McGregor, but also the fact that it was a different weight class and the cardio issues that Conor have. Lot to take away from that, but in general, that's all I really want to because there's a piece I also want to talk about the Conor McGregor fight that we're going to talk about where I think Anthony Pettis will use. So you've got Anthony Pettis. You had 3 fights ago. He ended up choking out Michael Chiesa in the second round. Then he fought Tony Ferguson. He lost to Tony Ferguson by TKO, but that was a crazy fight where Ferguson looked hurt. He almost looked like he was going to finish Ferguson, and then Ferguson kind of rolled out of it and ended up, the durability of him is unbelievable. He was able to go out there and finishing the fight in the second round, so Ferguson gets that victory. And most recently, he fought Wonder Boy. Now, a lot of people are really downgrading Pettis because of this fight, because early on, he moved up in weight class, and early on, that first round, Wonder Boy was landing. And then in that second round, it was very close. Second round was kind of close. And then Pettis lands the big shot that puts Wonder Boy out. But the thing about this fight and again, now we're going to kind of talk about why and who I'm picking. The thing about that fight is that you're not going to see any of those weapons that Wonder Boy has for Nate Diaz to use. Nate Diaz is really a pure boxer. He's got great boxing, great cardio. He's durable. He's got good jiu-jitsu. But the thing that, and a lot of people also saying too, is that will Nate take Pettis down? Because Pettis has been susceptible to takedowns. He has not looked great on the ground in certain spots. But Nate Diaz does not go for takedowns. I mean, unless he drops Pettis, which really is the only time that you've really seen Diaz, then he'll smother you and look for the choke. But he doesn't look for the takedowns. He's good in the clinch. He's definitely good there. But Pettis, that's something that I think that Pettis can expose is what Conor McGregor did. In that second time, McGregor landed a bunch of leg kicks. He was really peppering him early with the leg kicks and really slowed down the pressure of Nate Diaz. And Nate Diaz likes to push forward. He likes to, have that pressure. But the difference with pressure between Stipe and what Diaz does are 2 different types of pressure. Because Stipe likes to really smother you, get close. He wants to land the big shots. But Diaz is a little bit more, he'll walk you down, but he's very slow with the walk down, and he leaves space between the fighter and himself. And that's where I think that Pettis is going to be able to utilize his kicks. And that's the big question, because a lot of people are kind of downgrading Pettis, saying, hey, he's not going to be able to use the kicks because Diaz is going to walk him down. But I think that there's going to be spots where there's going to be enough space where, Diaz is very nonchalant where he's walking you down. He definitely continues to have that cardio and the pressure and the volume. But the spot that Conor did was the leg kicks. And I think that is going to be such a big part. I think he does not check them. I mean, you don't even see Diaz really check them. He tries to. He's late. But he's really so focused on the boxing that unless he's changing something, but you've really seen that it's been something it's been very vulnerable to. And the fact that, yes, Diaz is a southpaw, but you've got somebody like Pettis who can switch sides. He can fight orthodox, he can fight southpaw, and he is very good at both. And he can smoothly switch between both, which also is tough to pick up his kicks. So he's able to really snap those kicks out in any angle, which makes it very difficult. And I think the body kicks are also going to keep him space, give him space. So for me here, I'm taking Anthony Pettis. The line moved up. It's at -130. Like the price still, I think that he gets the job done. I just think the 3-year layoff for Diaz is a monster. That is just a big red flag for me. A guy that has not fought since 2016, and it was twice against Conor McGregor, and then he's taken some time off, and they say, yes, he's training, and he's always, to the extent I would say every ranked guy is always training. Everyone's always honing their craft and getting better. But are you fight ready? Are you, is there ring rust? I do believe in the ring rust. I think you've seen that in the past, guys that really have been out and they come back in and it's a live fight and they're not as quick to really be out there. You've seen Conor McGregor do it against Khabib. He looked like a completely different person, although, he made $100 million, so who knows. But you've seen it with rust happening. So for me here, I'm taking Anthony Pettis as my other free plays. So those are my 2 free plays for UFC 241. Daniel Cormier to beat Stipe Miocic and Anthony Pettis to defeat Nate Diaz. Those are my plays. Let me know down below what you guys are betting, who you guys have, because I always love hearing about that. Subscribe if you've not yet done so. Give it a thumbs up. Always appreciate the comments down below and everybody who gets involved in this channel. And we will have the bet review show out on Sunday. And this is Kyle Anthony's UFC betting show, and I'll see you Sunday at the bet review.